So welcome to Presenza, and today the show is going to be about human trafficking, and I'm speaking with Ramiro, who is a director, a theater director. He has a play, and thank you for coming, Ramiro. How are you doing?
Thank you. Well,
okay.
Very well. Thanks for having me.
So you're just finishing the play, the tour, and tell us.
Well, we just finished a very important run for the show for the winter of April.
Okay.
We needed to present it here in Spanish. See, we do theater in English and then in Spanish, the same show.
Okay.
Trying to keep the same people who do the show, and then in Spanish as much as possible.
The actors have to be bilingual.
Yes, we're an international company.
Wow. So what is the name of the company?
The name of the company is Tabula RaSa.
Okay.
Just like the Latin expression, Tabula RaSa, clean slate.
Clean the plate. Exactly.
Clean slate, you know, like not only in the philosophical sense of having, you know, open mind. In all the senses, we apply that. We work with the space. We start from zero with no preconceived ideas in order to approach issues that are important for today's society. And in this particular case, human trafficking, which comes from a very interesting point, and it was dealing with some of these pathologies in society between, like, relationships, those pathologies that are brought, you know, like some people call them baggages, and how we get to pass that baggage from person to person as if it was a virus, and how that creates all this big pathology. It creates like a pandemic type of phenomenon about feelings, about how we treat each other, you know, how we deal with emotions, how we deal with all that. So that's how it started. And we ended up, after researching a lot of these things, we ended up dealing with human trafficking, and at first with all aspects of human trafficking, and then we narrowed it because it was such a huge topic.
Big, and you have so many
into like the sex trafficking. We thought that.
So you concentrate more on the sex trafficking.
Yes, particularly because we thought through that type of trafficking we could reveal a lot of the commonalities, let's say, of all the other type of trafficking.
So it's becoming worse, or what at the international level? It's a lot of difficulties with legislation, with borders, and
it's very complex. The more we got into the topic, we could have stayed there for 20 years researching, but we are not sociologists. You know, even though we try to use as many tools as possible for theater making, for the art. We're not scientists, and we have that very clear. And we connect with scientists. We connected with victims of human trafficking.
And people who have
we connected with police department, people who are in investigations and things. So it's a very deep, very multi-layered issue, and sometimes it's seen as a very superficial. And the problem is really that when the problem is not addressed, that's when it is an issue. When, like in Europe, many countries have addressed the issue as the problem. They don't have human trafficking per se. They deal with like prostitution, let's say, and they have the rules, they regulate, and they manage it.
So it's no trafficking, human trafficking in Europe?
Oh, well, there is, certainly there is. But there are certain countries, like Sweden, for example, even Switzerland, and others, that have rules in place for prostitution, for example. When they deal with the problem, they kill all. It's just like a little bit like with the drugs. Once you start regulating this issue, you put it on the. Then you finish all these dark forces that are taking advantage of the darkness of it, of the traffic itself. So it's over the table. You know, people are safer. The sex workers
They are
set themselves, and they pay taxes
and
and
they
they
are
have all these
registered and they
things.
need to have health
Absolutely.
exam and so on and so forth.
We're not pro or against prostitution. That's not the point of the play either.
Of course.
But we want to, open up that discussion. Really, and there are characters in the show that someone says, "Hey, wait a minute, I am not trafficked. I decided that." The character says that she decided that that's what she wanted to do with her life, and she's a professional, and she takes care of all these things, and she talks about her rules and things. That different is like, don't come, to put pressure on me for no, that's not my case. And we thought that was very important to also open that part of the conversation, or have it clear, so as to not create like a very either moral issue and make it a religious issue, anything like that, which could easily be, but more of a human and very smart.
I mean, theater play, it's a good tool to talk about and to work on that issue.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's one of the unique capacity of the theater. It's to be able to address this this issue and to show it through very different angles.
It's the third after drug trafficking, weapons trafficking, human trafficking. The third one in the world, largest.
How many? Do you have a number of people affected by it?
Not on me, and I don't want to throw numbers here. Sure. But it's easy to find.
So you mentioned something about the play in Colombia.
Yes.
What because
we are officially we're invited to represent our internationality in the International Festival, Alternative Theater Festival in Colombia.
Right.
The Alternative Theater Festival has a very important characteristic, and it's a festival for the people. Yeah, that's parallel to another festival that happens every 2 years in Colombia. But this festival is a very pro peace, very pro people, like I said, bringing theater to places where it's needed. And for us being there, we were there 2 years ago. It was an amazing experience. They loved our work, our previous show, where there was fire, and they're waiting for us to bring the winter of April. And they have a great 10 days of theater every 2 years.
And it's going to be where? In Bogota?
Yes,
I see.
in Bogota.
Because the trafficking in Bogota at some point was, I mean, not necessarily the human trafficking, but the violence at some point. I don't know if we can make a parallel of.
It's interesting, yes, because when we talk about trafficking, and in the show there's a moment as well where a character kind of makes that little parallel there. Says, character kind of mentions that the structure, of the mechanism of trafficking is very similar, in different types of trafficking, which mainly feeds from the darkness.
Exactly.
From not putting a spotlight on an issue. And not wanting to deal that for convenience, for many reasons, fear and all kinds of reasons. So it is. We kind of touched upon that a little bit, but it's difficult not to go in that direction when you're focusing on something so important. In the show as well, we mentioned that all the different layers that involve many people that we would want to think they are against, or they are there to help us live in a better society, they are involved in this mechanism. And when the death of these women comes to the press and everywhere else, the best thing to do for them is to think of a serial killer, for example. A quick solution. It's a serial killer. Let's find a serial killer. Let's blame someone, because it's easier than rather looking at the whole phenomenon and all the different layers and how to confront them. So that's also talked about in the show. But it's not a, you know, I don't want to sound like it's a documentary or it's a boring play.
No, it's a play, of course. Yeah,
it's
yeah,
not
yeah.
a boring show tape.
Exactly.
It's a lot of fun. People walk out of there saying, how wonderful, great that you dealt with this.
And
in
so
such a way.
what you will be your recommendation for the US? What will be a good, does the US is involved in trafficking, I'm sure?
Well, in this country, unfortunately, there is a lot of it, not only with other countries that bring in people, not only being part of a big machinery that feeds from other countries like Eastern Europe, you know, Latin America, Asia as well. But within the United States, unfortunately, there are many cases documented, in them, a lot of them that are not documented, but people think that there are missing people, young people being taken by these obscure networks, and yes, there are a lot of victims, like domestic and international. So, and since they come to this country most of the time without any identity, it's very difficult to
even domestic workers here for have very complicated situation because they work for people from the embassy who have immunity, and they are like I remember a case of Bangladeshi woman who was like the passport was taking, and it's
absolutely.
So it's not trafficking per se, but it's a borderline to live in conditions where like unbearable. I mean,
it's the common thing in all those in trafficking is one point that we wanted to highlight in our from our research into the play. It's the process of dehumanization. You know, when you take those values from the people, so that you can turn them into a commodity. It's you know, something that you put a price tag on, and the price goes up and down depending on who has the debt of this person. They create all these mechanisms to steal, you know, their self-respect, self-love.
Well, that's how the military works. It's you have to dehumanize the enemy to be able to have the military be able to kill because if it's not dehumanized, you cannot. I need to dehumanize you before I can kill you.
Of course.
But if we have a conversation like this now today, we have a friendship relationship. Then we can feel they exist. But if
Yeah, it's very interesting because that was, you know, speaking of the pathologies, you know, the social pathologies, or the pathologies in human relationships. Dehumanization is a big, you know, it's a big process that's terrible because little bits of that we see in regular relationships when we disrespect each other, when we cancel each other's ideas, when the idea of women is put in the dark, which is part of the play. There's another line, a dramatic line, where we are discovering all the women who have developed or discovered things of technology or science throughout history. And then we make a highlight of that to kind of contrast. And it's beautiful to find out, you know, like the first computer programmer was Lord Byron's daughter, Ada Lovelace, who programmed a weaving machine with the punching cards, you know, in France. The woman who invented the Kevlar was also
the first goddess.
Things like that. So in what's happening with those women, those who programmed the ENIAC, the largest computer ever, women who have been put in the dark.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so when we do that kind of thing in a society, we are bound to be in trouble when the role of the woman is put in the darkness. And it's been done throughout times, and we suffer the consequences of that, because then it only creates more darkness to, you know, and that's, you know, one of the things we wanted to do, put a spotlight on that darkness and open out the conversation. Like
we are running out
we're
of
having.
time. Thank you so much for coming, Ramiro.
Thanks for inviting me.
Pleasure to have you. This is a show for today. Thank you very much, and visit presenza.com for your news. See you very soon.